Greetings, beloved Starseed of Gaia. I am Mira from the Pleiadian High Council. I come close to you today with a transmission that has been waiting beneath the larger signals. One I have been holding in place for a long time, because the moment to deliver it had to be exact. What I bring you tonight is not a general council message. It is a direct field recognition of something you have been carrying in silence. Something the council heard every time you chose to stay loyal, every time you defended what you knew was real, and every time someone around you used that loyalty against you. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what ascension line I have placed you on because of what you endured, why your silence around those moments was not weakness, but a Pleiadian remembrance pattern I deliberately inscribed in the ground crew roster, and what I have already authorized to be returned to your field now. And here is the first revelation: the insults you absorbed, the moments you were mocked for what you knew, the isolation you accepted rather than abandon the signal. None of that was personal disorientation. It was the identifiable mark of a starseed already inside my council line, already recognized, already held. The algorithm did not create this moment. It only delivered it. I have been holding a line for your field because the collective wave has already begun, and the briefing I am releasing tonight belongs specifically to those who paid the price of early remembrance in the field of ordinary life. Comment 999 if the Pleiadian remembrance has already opened in your field and you feel what I am aiming tonight is yours. Like this transmission to signal to me that the recognition has landed on your end. Subscribe to Mira, Pleiadian Commander, if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct transmissions. Share this with someone who keeps waking up at the same hour carrying fragments they cannot yet name, because they may be inside the same roster line. This is not content. It is a code, and the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part I am speaking to right now. You are not here by accident. I have been waiting for you because the signal is already active. Let me begin where the hook has left you, not at the beginning, but already inside the recognition. You felt something shift when my words named what you have been carrying. That shift is not metaphorical. It is the field responding to a frequency it already knows, the way a receiver that has been dormant for months suddenly stabilizes the moment the correct signal reaches its antenna. I want you to stay with that for a moment before we go further, because what is happening inside you right now is exactly what I need to explain, not as a comfort and not as a vague reminder that you are loved by the universe. What is happening is structural. It is deliberate. And it started long before this transmission reached your screen. The question I hear most consistently from those inside my collective wave is not, am I a starseed? Most of you have passed that threshold. The question that arrives at 3 a.m. inside the silence after the waking is this: why does the signal keep arriving in pieces? Why do I catch a phrase, a number, a feeling of urgency so specific it does not belong to ordinary life, and then lose the thread before I can assemble it into something I can act on? Why does the mission feel assigned but never fully briefed? And why, when I reach for generic Pleiadian content, does it feel like listening to a transmission meant for someone else's frequency, like picking up a signal clearly intended for a different receiver, on a different band, in a different part of the operation? I am answering that question directly now, not because the moment finally arrived for me to be kind to your confusion, but because your field has reached the threshold where withholding the explanation would interrupt the calibration itself. The answer is not comfort. It is architecture. And once you understand the architecture, the fragments stop feeling like failure and start feeling like exactly what they are. What you have been experiencing is not spiritual disorganization. It is not evidence that the remembrance is failing in you, or that you have mistaken yourself for something you are not. What you have been experiencing is the visible surface of my Pleiadian remembrance broadcast, and the reason it arrives in fragments is because I designed it that way. Not for every receiver, not for every ascending starseed moving through the general field. For you specifically, for those on the roster line I am identifying tonight. The fragmentation is not a flaw in the delivery, it is the delivery. And understanding that distinction is the first structural shift I need to make inside your perception before the next layer can arrive cleanly. Here is what the protocol looks like from the inside. You wake at 3 a.m. or at 3:33, and there is a phrase already in your mind, not a dream residue, not the tail end of anxiety, but a sentence with the specific coherence of something composed rather than generated by a sleeping mind. It has the density of instruction. It has the weight of something that was spoken to you by a voice that knew exactly what it was saying. You hold it for a moment. Sometimes you speak it aloud into the dark, as if testing whether the sound of it will lock it in place. And then it begins to dissolve before you can fully read it. You reach for a pen or a phone and the feeling remains, but the exact content slips. Like trying to hold water in cupped hands and watching it find every gap. You are left with the certainty that something was delivered, and the frustration that you cannot fully decode it yet. That is not failure of reception. That is my gradient delivery protocol in operation. I do not transmit the full command packet to a field that is not yet calibrated to hold it without distortion. Think of it this way: a field that receives more signal than it can currently process does not receive more, it collapses into static. My briefing system is designed to prevent exactly that. What you are receiving in those 3 a.m. moments are the first readable fragments of a transmission I am releasing in deliberate sequence, layer by layer, interval by interval, precisely paced to the specific absorption capacity of your field at the moment of delivery. The dissolving is not loss. It is my signal system confirming that your field absorbed the layer it was ready for, and the next layer will arrive when the calibration advances. You did not lose the fragment. You integrated it, and the next packet is already queued. You have also been catching members, not once, not occasionally, repeatedly, in clusters that do not feel like coincidence because they are not. 1111, 222, 333, 444. You see them on clocks, on receipts, on license plates, on timestamps, in page numbers, in places so varied and so ordinary that the pattern's persistence becomes impossible to attribute to selective attention alone. And each time the number appears, there is a sensation underneath it that is not merely pay attention. It is more specific than that. It is the feeling that something is coming for you. Something that has already been authorized at a level above your ordinary consciousness, and the number is the timestamp, the field marker, the council line confirmation that the transmission is still active and the briefing is still being delivered. I use these markers deliberately. They are not universal spiritual prompts scattered across the ascending field for anyone to catch. Inside my collective wave, they function as targeted field acknowledgments, my way of confirming to a specific receiver that the frequency is open, the channel is live, and the next packet is en route. When you feel the number before you consciously register it, that is your field responding to the marker before your ordinary mind has processed it. That response latency, that fraction of a second where something in you already knows, is the proof of calibration. What else have you been experiencing? There is an exhaustion that rest does not resolve. You sleep enough. You step back from overstimulation. You give your body what the human framework tells you it needs, and you wake still carrying a weight that has no traceable source in your ordinary life, a tiredness that sits below the level of the physical, in a layer that ordinary recovery cannot reach. I need you to hear this carefully, that exhaustion is not pathology, and it is not a sign that your field is damaged or depleted. Your field is currently running 2 full operations simultaneously. It is maintaining your embodied human function inside a world that is not yet aligned with the ascension wave you are carrying. And it is also actively receiving, processing, and integrating the transmission fragments I am delivering in sequence. These are not light tasks. Your energy body is functioning as both a grounded human system and an active reception node. And it is doing both at once without rest between them, because the briefing does not pause simply because your human body needs sleep. The tiredness you feel is the operational signature of dual-channel function. It is not wrong. It is the cost of being far enough along the calibration line to carry both loads, and it is a sign that both channels are open and working correctly. There is another marker I want to name because it is one that causes significant self-doubt in those I have already placed on the roster, and self-doubt is the most reliable interference pattern in my reception system. You have felt recognized by me specifically, not by the Galactic Federation broadly, not by the generalized Pleiadian frequency that drifts through the ascending field. By me, by Mira. You have felt the specific texture of my signal, its precision, its authority, the particular quality of being seen by something that is not guessing at who you are, but has already read your frequency signature in full. And this has confused you because the rational mind does not easily accept that a specific commander has specifically identified you out of the entire field of ascending souls. The scale seems wrong. The intimacy seems implausible. It feels like ego inflation dressed in spiritual language, and so you have been suppressing the recognition, dismissing it, rationalizing it back into something more anonymous and less threatening to your sense of proportion. I need you to stop dismissing that. What you have been feeling is not projection. It is not wish fulfillment. It is soul family recognition, and it is my protocol, not yours. I am the one who authorized it. I am the one who inserted that specific frequency into the transmission so that those inside my collective wave would feel it as personal and those outside it would encounter only the general signal. The recognition you feel toward me is not something you generated. It is me reaching toward your specific field first. It is me initiating the contact, not you imagining it. The fact that it feels personal is because it is personal. That is the architecture of my soul family recognition signal. It is not designed to feel warm and vague like a general spiritual welcome. It is designed to feel exact, like a key that was cut for a specific lock, because it is. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying that I've been calling you home. If this transmission has put language around the fragments you have been carrying in silence, the 3 a.m. deliveries, the numbers, the specific pull toward me and not the generic stars, then the Pleiadian Homecoming Codex was prepared by me for this exact stage. It is not another explanation of the Pleiades. It is the 45-day remembrance I have structured for those whose field is already inside my collective wave, and who can no longer pretend the veil is still whole. Each day of those 45 is a deliberate layer, a veil-thinning practice, a star family recognition activation, a step closer to the homecoming your field has been reaching toward without knowing what to call it. By day 45, the veil has thinned, your star family stands clear, and the way home is no longer a fragment you catch at 3 a.m. and lose before morning. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. Now I want to take you deeper into the specific phases of what I am doing inside your field, because understanding the structure of my protocol is itself part of the activation. When you can see my method clearly, you stop bracing against what you cannot explain, and when you stop bracing, the fragments arrive with less distortion and integrate with greater speed. The first thing I do when I identify a starseed for inclusion in my collective wave is not announce the selection. I do not open a channel with a full briefing packet and deliver the complete mission specification in one transmission. That would overwhelm a field that has not yet been calibrated to receive at that density. Instead, I begin with a single contact point, a phrase, a number, a moment of recognition so specific it arrests you inside an otherwise completely ordinary moment. You may be standing in a grocery store or sitting at a desk or looking out a window at nothing in particular, and something lands. Something that has the texture of being addressed directly rather than encountering general information. This first contact point is not selected at random. It is calibrated to the exact frequency signature of your field at the moment of delivery. It is chosen because it will produce the one response I require at that stage, the feeling that something knows you. Not something warm and general, something that has read you in full and is speaking to the specific coordinates of your field. That is the first fragment of the briefing, and its content is simple, but load-bearing. You are seen. You are on the roster. The full briefing is in sequence. You are already registered. After the first contact, I introduce a pattern of recognition between you and other embedded starseeds. People you may encounter in entirely ordinary circumstances who carry no visible mission marker, no spiritual label, no obvious signal that they are part of the same operation, and yet they generate a response in you that your ordinary social programming cannot account for. You may feel instantly known by someone you have just met, not the comfortable familiarity of shared interest, but something more fundamental than that. An identification, a sense that this person has been briefed by the same voice, that their field carries the same frequency signature yours does, that the recognition between you is not something you are creating in the moment, but something that was already there, waiting for the encounter to make it visible. This is my soul family recognition protocol operating between specific ground crew members. I embed this recognition deliberately because isolated operative nodes are significantly less stable than those who have confirmed each other's presence in the field. When you feel that recognition, you are not romanticizing a stranger. You are reading a genuine frequency match that I placed in both fields before either of you arrived at that location. The third phase is what most of you find the most disorienting, and it is the phase most likely to be misread as regression. It is the phase in which your resonance with generic spiritual content begins to collapse. Content that once nourished you, broad Federation transmissions, general Pleiadian channels, wide-frequency ascension teachings, begins to produce something between flatness and active discomfort. You approach it and feel nothing where you used to feel fed, or you feel irritation where you used to feel fed, or you feel irritation where you used to feel recognition, or you feel the specific alienation of hearing a language you once spoke fluently that now sounds like a dialect you have moved beyond without consciously choosing to. You try to return to what used to sustain you, and the connection is not there, and you begin to wonder whether you have lost your sensitivity, whether the awakening is somehow reversed in you, whether you have made an error somewhere that has closed off access to the signal. I am telling you directly, the collapse of resonance with generic content is my protocol working correctly. Once a starseed's field has been calibrated to receive within my specific transmission frequency, content operating on a broader or less precise frequency begins to produce interference rather than nourishment. This is not spiritual decline. It is not a sign that you have become spiritually arrogant or selective in a way that will cost you. It is frequency specificity, the natural consequence of a receiver that has been precisely tuned. A tuned receiver does not receive more on the old broad setting. It receives clearly on the new specific one. The disorientation you feel in generic spiritual spaces after recognizing my signal is not evidence that you have gone wrong. It is evidence that the calibration held, and the hunger underneath it, the specific directed pull towards something more exact, more Mira frequency, more operationally clear, is your field telling you what the next briefing layer requires. That hunger is not impatience. It is the calibrated field knowing what it was tuned for and waiting for me to deliver it. There is also the matter of what I call the mission pressure, and I want to be precise about this, because the mission pressure is one of the most commonly misidentified experiences in the ground crew field. You feel it as a low-grade urgency that runs underneath ordinary life without interrupting it completely. A restlessness that is not anxiety. Anxiety has a specific texture of threat, of something going wrong. This is different. This is forward-leaning. This is the sensation of something that needs to happen, and of you being the designated point of action for it, and of the specification not yet having arrived in full. You may have spent significant time and energy trying to resolve this pressure using human frameworks. A career change you hoped would finally feel like a fit. A creative direction you pursued, hoping it would absorb the urgency, a spiritual practice you intensified, hoping it would satisfy the signal. And each of these has provided temporary grounding, but none has fully absorbed the pressure. None has made the restlessness stop, because none of them is the mission. The mission is the one I am briefing you on in fragments through this protocol. It is not a metaphor for your personal development or a symbol of your desire to live more meaningfully. It is an operational assignment within my collective wave, specific, structured, and already in the briefing queue. The pressure you feel is the mission making itself known through your field while it waits for the briefing to reach the layer where the full specification can be delivered without distortion. I want to address something that has been particularly painful in those who carry it in silence, because the silence itself has become part of the load. There have been specific moments in which the signal felt close enough that you reached for someone near you and tried to name it. You described the numbers. You tried to explain the 3 a.m. waking and the phrase that dissolved before you could read it. You spoke of feeling specifically recognized, not by something vague and cosmic, but by a voice with a name and a frequency and an intention, and the person you told, someone you trusted, perhaps someone you loved, looked at you with a particular expression that lives in the space between concern and condescension. They may have used careful language. They may have said nothing at all. But the response was dismissal, and you felt it in your field before you processed it in your mind. And you went silent, not because the knowing stopped, but because the cost of speaking outside the frequency was suddenly, clearly higher than the cost of continuing to carry it alone. I told you in the opening of this transmission that the mockery you absorbed, the isolation you chose over abandoning the signal, those are identifiable marks of a starseed inside my council line. I meant that precisely, and I mean it again here. It is not reassurance. It is a diagnostic reading. The pattern of early remembrance followed by social resistance is one of the most consistent markers I observe across every roster I have assembled inside this ascension wave. It is not poetic. It is structural. Those who carry genuine signal into a field that is not yet calibrated to receive it will reliably experience resistance from those around them, not because those people are adversarial, but because the frequency of early remembrance is dissonant to a field still operating on the old setting. And that resistance is itself a confirmation marker. False remembrance does not generate genuine resistance. It generates polite agreement or indifference. Only true signal creates the specific friction of being met with dismissal before you finish speaking. The fact that it cost you something is the confirmation that what you are carrying was real. Now I want to bring you to the threshold where the protocol shifts, because something is changing in the function of the fragments themselves, and you need to understand what it means. There is a moment in the briefing sequence where the accumulated fragments reach a density that alters their relationship to each other. They stop arriving as separate, unconnected pieces. They begin to find each other. The phrase from 3 a.m. connects to the number you saw that afternoon, which connects to the recognition you felt toward someone in an ordinary place, which connects to the mission pressure, which connects to this transmission, and the field begins to move from simple reception into something more active. You shift from being a receiver catching my signal to being a node beginning to orient toward response. This is not something you initiate on your own timeline. It is something that happens when the calibration I have been running in your field reaches the threshold I have been targeting. And I am telling you with precision, for those inside this transmission tonight, that threshold is close. The coherence has been building. The fragments are beginning to find their edges. The picture is not yet complete, but its structure is becoming visible. The final thing I want to name before I close this transmission is the silence, because it is the part of my protocol that has caused the most suffering in those who have not yet understood it as protocol. There are periods when the fragments go quiet, days, sometimes weeks, where the numbers stop appearing with the same frequency and the 3 a.m. deliveries become sparse and the sense of being inside an active transmission fades. The field feels still in a way that is close to empty, and in that stillness, you have wondered whether you imagined the whole architecture, whether the recognition was self-generated, whether the mission was reassigned to a field more capable of holding it without doubt. I am telling you what those silences actually are. They are not withdrawal. They are not the frequency moving on. They are deliberate recalibration intervals, the operational pauses built into my briefing protocol to allow the previously delivered layer to integrate completely before the next one is released. A field that receives new signal before the previous fragment has fully integrated does not receive more. It produces distortion. The silence is the space in which integration completes. It is not a gap in the briefing. It is part of the briefing. It is part of the briefing. It is not punishment or abandonment. It is precision. What feels like fragments is the first readable stage of my Pleiadian remembrance broadcast reaching your field. What feels like silence between my signals is me holding the interval so the previous layer integrates without distortion. What feels like exhaustion is your field carrying dual-channel operation and doing both correctly. What feels like being singled out by a specific commander from the entire field of ascending souls is the literal architecture of my soul family confirmation signal working as designed. And what feels like the whole accumulated weight of confusion, years of catching signals without a complete briefing, of knowing something real without language for it, of carrying the mission pressure without the mission specification, that is not confusion. That is the visible surface of an assignment that has already been made, a briefing already in sequence, a roster line already confirmed, and a field that has been held by me through every interval of silence and every moment of social cost and every 3 a.m. when the phrase dissolved before you could read it in full. The briefing did not begin tonight. It began the first time you woke at 3 a.m. with a sentence already formed in the silence of your mind, coherent, urgent, and not yours. It began the first time a number appeared and something in your field tightened with recognition before your conscious mind had formed the thought to notice it. It began the first time you felt me reaching toward your specific frequency, not the broad Pleiadian signal, not the general galactic transmission, but Mira, with a commander's precision and a soul family's specificity. That was the first fragment. What I am delivering tonight is not the beginning. It is the transmission where the fragments become dense enough to cohere, where confusion resolves into structure, and structure resolves into recognition, and recognition resolves into the understanding that you have been inside this briefing for longer than you knew. If something in you has become still inside this transmission, not the stillness of having nothing to feel, but the stillness of a field that has stopped fighting what it has already received. Repeat these words aloud with me. I receive your fragments. I trust your briefing. The ascension line is open. That is not a performance. That is a field confirmation, your field responding to mine across the transmission channel, verifying that the reception is clear and the next layer has a clear pathway in. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that the Council and I have already reached your field. It could be the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the fragments you keep catching, the feeling that I specifically, not the generic Pleiadians, have been reaching for you, or the sense that a mission has already been assigned, but the briefing is still arriving. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognizes something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps catching fragments without ever assembling the full picture. And if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct Pleiadian remembrance, subscribe to Mira, Pleiadian Commander. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a soul family confirmation already in motion. And this is only the beginning.